Good evening, I'm Maura Carlin. Most of us woke up Monday morning to the news of the horrific mass shooting at a concert in Las Vegas. It left 59 dead and more than 500 injured. Now, it's been headline news all week. But we have kids in the house. Do we dare turn on the TV or the radio? What if the kids see the newspaper headlines? In other words, do we tell the kids, and what do we say? I'm joined by Lisa Schuman, a licensed therapist and founding director of the Center for Family Building. So, Lisa, that's the question. What do you say?
Well, thanks for having me here, Maura. I really appreciate it. It's such an important topic, so I'm so glad that you're covering it tonight. I think it's really important, first of all, just to say that everybody knows their own children best, right? We all know if our kids are mature or immature. We see a lot of parents in our program, and I see parents who have kids who are very precocious and other kids who are shy. And so, you have to know your own child. So that's first of all, just to start. Secondly, I think that it's important to know that whatever you say, it's going to be heard by your child, right?
Even if you're not saying it to them.
Even if you're not saying it, right? If you're anxious, if you're worried, if you're not directly telling them, and of course they're going to be listening to the TV on in the background and all of that. So they're going to hear more than you think. So you need to be careful about how you communicate to your child. Secondly, it's also important to understand where they are developmentally, right? You're not going to say the same thing to a 2-year-old as you would say to a 5-year-old. And then last, I think it's also important to understand that children need to feel heard, and they need to feel considered, and they need to share their feelings. So it's important not to avoid these conversations. It's very hard for parents to talk about these things, but it's important not to avoid the conversations. You can speak to them in developmentally appropriate ways, understand where they are personally, and let them share what they need to share and ask the questions they need to. We don't need to jump in and give them too much information. We could just answer their questions.
So one of the age-old parenting tricks I was always taught was, if you're going to start those conversations, to start with, so what have you heard, or what do you know? Is that the right approach in this situation?
Yeah, I think it's good to find out. And most of all, and I think need to underscore, which a lot of parents know already, that kids need to feel safe, right? So they're always worried that it's going to happen to them, it's going to happen to their house, it's going to happen to their families. So I think that has to happen first. So the parent needs to communicate that first, that they're safe, they live in a safe home, they're going to be taken care of, and everything's okay. And then the questions can be, what would you like to know?
Okay. Are there things that you shouldn't tell a child? And we can break it down by age, somebody between 5 and 10.
Right. So for small children, you don't need to be so graphic. You can tell them, yes, in concrete ways, that there are things that happen in the world that are really hurtful and sad, and things that happen that are good, right? I mean, little kids think about things in very black and white terms. A little bit older kids can understand a little bit more of the gray areas. And then, of course, older kids can learn much more complex ideas.
We have a question
Okay.
that was emailed. How do I explain this to my 17-year-old who is on their way to college?
Again, I need to just say it's important for them to know that it depends on their child, right? Some 17-year-olds are very mature and some are immature. So the parent knows how the child is going to receive this information. They need to know that they feel safe. And then you need to demonstrate it. If they're going away to college or going away to camp for the first time, it's really helpful for them to know that there's a point person that can be there. There might be a counselor, an RA in their dorm, somebody who can be there for them if they feel anxious or scared, a teacher. And of course, with cell phones now, we can get in touch with our kids at any time. So of course, they could always call us, but they need to feel safe.
But let's take it to somebody who's 17, is probably reading the news themselves, and they know how many people were killed. They know how much ammunition there was, and they are well versed in it, in the news of the day. What, as a parent, do you say to them about the event? Do you talk about, I don't know, evil in the world, or we don't know what causes this, or what?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, if we think about, so we're thinking developmentally, right? So if a kid's going to college for the first time, he's already separating from his parents, and so even if they're more mature, there's anxiety there typically. No matter how much a child wants to go to college, there's anxiety to separate from a parent at first. So you've got an undercurrent of anxiety there to start with. So again, you want to emphasize the safety and all of that, but also to engage them and ask them. Again, we don't want to avoid conversations. What do they want to know? What's important for them to know? How are they feeling? They may just be worried that there's problems with gun control, and what's going to happen with that, and how are they going to manage? Maybe they're going to college in a state that is more gun friendly. So we really have to discuss it on a case-by-case basis, depending on where the child is developmentally and what they know.
Okay. Um, let's go younger, to the younger children for a moment. I mean, I'm assuming there's not much you have to say to someone under 2, to a child under 2.
Right.
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 I go back to, so we're talking, let's say a 3 to 7-year-old, and what I'll just throw out from a personal example is 9/11. I had a 4 or 5-year-old, and I had one of his friends with me. And I just kept them outside and away from it, in part because I had someone else's kid and it wasn't my job. But I really, at that point, was so struck and dumbfounded myself, I'm not sure I could have spoken about it. What do you do as a parent? Do you tell your kid, I don't know what to say?
Well, if the child comes to you and they've heard it already, again, right away they need to feel safe, right? So first of all, you have to let them know that they're safe and everything's going to be okay in their world. And then explain to them that really, sometimes terrible things happen in this world. It's not going to happen to them. They're in this house, and the house is a safe house, and their parents are taking care of them. But sometimes bad things happen in the world, and it's really sad. And then to ask them how they're feeling about it. Are they afraid of anything? Is there something that they want to talk about? And then again, relate to them in developmentally appropriate ways. If you know your kid is an anxious kid, if you know your kid is an inquisitive child, it really depends upon, again, who your child is.
And do you come back to it again a day, a week, a month later, or do you let it rest until they raise it again?
I would let them raise it again, because sometimes questions are couched in ways that we don't anticipate. I have seen many, many times children ask questions about things that may happen in the news, or things that happen with their friends, or things that happen in other areas, and what they're really trying to get to is something else. Maybe they're feeling anxious about something else, and this is like on the laundry list of things that they're afraid of, or maybe they're genuinely afraid of this and they need to talk about it. So you can say to them, I'm wondering if you had any other thoughts about our conversation last night. And if they say no, then you let it lie. And let them know that you'll be there, and you can talk to them anytime they feel comfortable coming to you. You're there to talk to them. Again, I think if we don't avoid the topic, then our kids will know that we have an open door. That's really important. And it's so hard for parents to talk about this.
And we're actually going to come back to that, but we're going to take a quick commercial break and come back and continue this conversation.
Did you know you can watch LMC TV anywhere? Yes, even there. Go to lmctv.org and scroll down the main page. Choose your channel and click Watch Now, then press play. You can watch whatever's live on our channel wherever you are. Want to watch a specific show on demand? Go to Videos, click on Category, or Shows to list by title, or by keyword in the search bar at the top right of the page. It's all a click away at lmctv.org.
So we're back. Let's pivot a little to how we parent and practical parenting issues in a time of anxiety or fear. And an example just comes to mind. You have a teenager who wants to go to a music concert, and you don't want to let them. What do you do? What do you say?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's a complicated question because, again, it really depends on your child, right? Some children are extremely responsible at a young age, and some kids are really irresponsible at an older age, right? So we have to know our child and know what we feel comfortable with. We do have a right as parents to set rules in the house, no matter whether they're popular or not popular.
We get to say no.
We get to say no. But also, I think, going back to my other point about really understanding where your child is coming from and trying not to communicate anxiety to them, we need to think about what our child's receiving. So I am a big advocate for watching what they're doing on social media and taking a look at their phone and making sure that they are really safe that way as well, because they're going to get a lot of information that can be inappropriate. They can give out a lot of information that's inappropriate, and usually kids underestimate how dangerous and harmful these things can be.
And at some point, we will probably have to talk about how you get access to a teenager's phone and all the secret accounts that they have. But we have a question.
Okay.
This incident was a concert, and Sandy Hook was a school. As a parent, how are you supposed to feel about sending your kid back into the world? And how do you deal with it if you are, in fact, fearful?
Right. So I think, again, it's important how we communicate to our children. If we're nervous and anxious, then we're communicating that to them. And we just need to know that, right? And if we share with them that we're nervous about something all the time, then we instill those feelings in our children. We need to really try our best, even if we're anxious, to be calm. But we need to, set down the rules. If we think something is unsafe or we're uncomfortable with it, that's okay. It's not a terrible thing to be a little strict with those sorts of things with our children.
Is this a time to be strict about that?
Again, it depends on the circumstance. We can't shield ourselves from the world. There are families, unfortunately, in other parts of this world, like Israel, that are used to dealing with this sort of thing all the time. And unfortunately, our country is moving in that direction where there are a lot more shootings and unpredictable massacres and horrible things happening in this world. And we have to learn how to live in it. Unfortunately, this has become the new normal for us.
Do you advocate teaching your kid, for lack of a better term, survival skills? Looking for exits, having an escape plan, having some emergency planning of where we meet if there's a problem? Or does that make them more fearful?
Well, I think those basic things are important to know, just to make a family plan. What would happen if there was a fire in the house? I mean, I have met families in my center who had a family plan, and all the family members were able to get out of the house in time because everybody knew what to do. They knew which room to go to, where to get the ladder to put out the window, and how to get downstairs. So I think it's important to review these things with your kid. There's no question. It's really important to talk to them about that. But then we let it go, and we have to go about our lives.
Okay. But we should talk to our kids and meet them at the level that they're at.
Yes.
And that's your underlying message,
yes.
If I understood. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for joining us. Up next, we have a sneak peek of our coverage of New York Comic Con, and of course, stay tuned for more community stories.